now we can start. What do I want to do today? A couple things. I sent you, yes, all right. We're gonna try to accomplish two related but very different things today. Number one, we're gonna talk about Die Hard. We're gonna try our best to get a little more in depth today. We took a pretty light touch last time. One of those, let's just take inventory of the scene days. You know, you guys did a pretty good job, but I want to try to take it a step further today. We'll see how we do. Second half of class, we're going to talk about the first paper. We'll just cover that when we get there. All right. To begin with. What's your name, man? Oh shit. The mask is making it very difficult. Trevor. I said you weren't here. You didn't say anything. It's okay. Damn it. Hello. Okay. You here as well. All right. Now then, what we're about to look at. And I should adjust the volume accordingly. All right. I don't know if it's going to blow our eardrums out or not. I think it'll be okay. What we're about to look at. This is the scene where McLean has already come into the office party. He's met some people. He's kind of milled about. But this is the first moment where he and Holly actually can talk to each other in private, okay? So the masks are gonna kind of come off, you know, especially like if you've ever been in a relationship and you have to talk with somebody, it's gonna get real fast, basically. Like we did last time, a good starting place would be anything you notice that seems interesting, potentially significant, okay? But the step we want to take beyond that today is why. What's interesting about it? Does it help you think about any larger questions or themes in the movie? You know, does it tie into anything else? Does it suggest maybe some kind of an argument in some kind of a way? Okay? We're going to try to take that next step today. And we'll see how loud it is. See if I can make it full. Okay. We can watch it again if we need to, but again, just off the top of your head, right now, anything that stands out to you as potentially significant, something somebody said, the way somebody looks or acts, anything like that. What's going on here anyway?
They're having a fight about her using her maiden name.
Her maiden name. Why does that bother McLean, do you think?
It came right after the scene, like he was conversating with her coworkers or whatever. And
Yeah.
She was already getting a bad vibe from her.
Yeah.
And then like it was like all the time leading up, like you didn't even try to like fix out a marriage. You just chose to take this opportunity.
Yeah.
Then I come here to check in. Like I looked at our last night and it's your maiden name. And then this guy is so like uppy about you, and this got so much to say about you. So like, you know, like, what's going on? Like, it's just that much.
Okay, so right there you kind of, you made a good observation, which is, and he does, although you kind of have to take what they both say to get this, right? It's almost like on the one side, he has their marriage, right? Which would include her having his last name to him, okay? And that cannot agree with her opportunity that she has. She even says it's a Japanese company, and it's really nice too, by the way. I could not do this, like talking over each other like they do. They do it really well. But basically she's trying to say it's a Japanese company. They want a woman who's not married for some reason, okay? And he breaks in, oh, but you are married, you're married to me, right? Like, is basically implying that everything that comes with this opportunity, this world, can't exist with this one. And it seems like that's the crux of their argument. Now, I don't think we necessarily have to do one of these, but we could. I think you could easily sort of start listing elements on either side of that line. And it becomes interesting, because I think it tells you a good deal about what each of these characters wants here. So for instance, on this side, they would both be called, I suppose, McLean. And on this side, her name is Gennaro, which is a problem for him. What are they really fighting about, though? I know that's kind of a big question, but again, I kind of made the joke at the top of all this. We've been in relationships. You've had arguments, you know. Most of the time, whatever you're fighting about isn't the real fight, you know? There's something underneath that disagreement. What do you think, what problem are they having with each other? What can't they agree on?
Long distance.
Do what?
Long distance.
Well, the distance is making the relationship sort of strained, I guess. But you get the sense, like she says, I had an opportunity and I had to take it. And again, this is maybe part of that. Changing her name is part of that. You get the sense that the distance is more of a symptom rather than the problem, right?
Maybe she doesn't feel like she has much of a life outside of her marriage when she is married, so she had an opportunity.
What leads you to say that?
The whole marriage does not equal opportunity thing.
Okay. Well, yeah, we kind of get the idea, and again, I think it's done really well when we put their names up here. This is where McLean sits on the side of the line, and this is where Holly Gennaro sits on the side of the line. We talked about last time, when she takes her maiden name here, one really easy way to read that is like an act of independence, right? It's not always this way these days, but for a long time historically, certainly in this period, taking the guy's last name could be argued as a kind of ownership. You know what I'm saying? And again, not everyone sees it that way. But she's kind of implying that argument, right? She takes her name back. She takes opportunity as a result of that. She's much more independent with this name, with this life, right? She lives on a totally opposite coast, making it work for her, right? But they bring up a couple interesting things. Did anyone... go ahead. What?
No,
What?
sorry.
Ah. Did anyone catch what McLean says? Well, I'll introduce it this way. So first, how does this fight start? Does anybody pick up, like, anybody remember Holly says something?
She says, I miss you.
She says, she says like, the kids would like to have you for Christmas. And he kind of smiles, it's nice. And then she says, I would like it too. And he's like, he smiles again, and you're like, oh, these guys are so cute. And then what happens? No, but something happens. Nobody says anything, something happens.
Oh, those people.
They barge in. Who are those people? They're people that work at the company, right? They're there for the party. This world barges in. You could argue that's a reminder that kind of smacks McLean in the... They have this nice moment. This nice moment cannot exist because that world breaks into it, right? The argument would go. She tries to pick it back up. Then she says, I missed you. Picks it right up where they left off. I missed you. Just reminding you, dog. What does he say?
It's my last name.
Woo! Do you remember what he says after that? Except maybe... Oh! Such the wrong response to have. But again, we couldn't argue in a paper that McLean is an idiot. That's pretty obvious. He even says as much after she leaves, right? He knows he messed up, which is interesting. But before we get there, what are we saying? Well, part of this world is those partiers. More on them in a second. But what they represent, they're kind of tied to this world. What does McLean suggest she gets out of his name? I just want to hear somebody say it again. He says, you don't want my name except when what? So he's implying that he's like paying for her in some way. Okay? He's providing for her. Do you follow?
I would disagree because with the new life mentality.
She doesn't seem like she needs much providing. Right? Interesting that, isn't it? Now, we can't know a lot about the life they had. We only have to go off of what they give us. But she says here something to the effect of, I'm paraphrasing, but like, you couldn't handle what our marriage became, basically, right? Like, once she got this opportunity, that seemed to change things. So the implication seems to be originally that McLean maybe was the provider, okay? He's a New York cop. He's probably making decent money. They live on that. But then she becomes more independent as a result of that opportunity. Oh, yeah, what's up, man?
Also, I was bringing the last line before it went off when she was like, he didn't like when it changed from his perspective of how the marriage went, pretty much kind of like saying she wasn't working, she was doing something, so kind of like she wanted to get out and like try something new and like kind of like get independent.
Yeah. And well, again, that's what we're saying. Like, it seems like if she had never taken whatever that opportunity was, right, to go work at this company, that it would have just stayed like this, right? But with this, all this other stuff seems to come along with it. And we talked last time a little bit about all the ways McLean is uncomfortable in the movie. Sometimes he's afraid, other times he's just unhappy. But a lot of the first half of the film is him just being like grumps. Like different iterations of like, And this is one of those too, right? Just like the plane, he doesn't like being on this side of this line. So much so that at the end of this scene, when he recognizes that he was a damn fool in their conversation, it's almost like he couldn't help himself. You see what I'm saying? He's here. He came all the way across the country. He's not here to visit. You don't make that flight to visit. He's here to try to make this work. And he put his damn foot in his mouth, right? Something about the pull of this side of that line is so strong at this point in the film, you could argue he can't even help himself. Other things you guys noticed? There's a couple things. I'm just curious if it struck any of you.
The way he looked at the lady who came in.
Like he wanted to stab her?
She was like,
Yeah. Well, and again, so kind of, who is she? She's some kind of an assistant to Holly, right? She's over here too, but I'm going to separate her from the partiers for a couple reasons. Let's talk about these folks real quick because we haven't. Easy question first. Why does he look at her like that? Like literally.
She came in and interrupted.
Yeah. She's like, hey, you need to, and he's like, she needs to do that right now? Right now? She needs to, we can't have this out? Any of us would react that way. But again, we're not going to write that in a paper, okay? So we got to think a little more theoretically. If she is on this side of that line, she's part of this world, why else? We're going to start to argue now. Why else might he look at her in that way? That very mocking sort of like head shake he gives.
She's like kind of reminding, I forgot her name.
Which one?
Gennaro.
Yeah, Holly.
Yeah, it's reminding Holly. She's kind of reminding Holly like about her responsibilities in like that world.
Uh-huh.
And
What does it mean if you have responsibilities? What else do you have?
duties to do.
Yeah. If you have duties, you probably have a modicum of,
Respect.
if you have respect, that probably comes from having,
Power.
yeah. This is her assistant. You have an assistant, you're somebody's boss. You have power. That's interesting. The two things Holly has on this side, I mean, money, obviously, but she has independence. We get that with her name. She has power. She has authority. Right? Damn, it's coming down. I mean, we're in here, so we're good. But wow. Now, again, we just got done talking about how uncomfortable McLean is on this side. So the argument that's starting to form is, it seems like he is deeply uncomfortable with this and this for some reason. And I think Holly tries to tell us here what that reason is. They don't have time to come right out and say it. They keep getting interrupted. But I think we kind of have a picture of what McLean wants here. What is he looking for? What was their marriage maybe a little more like before she got this job? He had the power. Right? What kind of, and again, we're theorizing here because it's not in the movie, but what was her life probably like? Stay at home, or, I mean, she probably had some kind of a job, but it wasn't, yeah, it's more like a distraction. He's bringing in the money. She's just kind of doing it almost maybe to say that she does or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, he has the money, he has the power. She has no independence. What kind of marriage does that sound like? I thought that would be easy. What kind of marriage is that? The dude makes the money, he has most of the power.
It's extremely traditional.
Just super traditional, 1950s, 60s type of marriage, right? Yeah. Now again, this movie came out in 1988 at the height of what some people would call the divorce epidemic. In large part, most of the theories go because women, for the very first time, were going out and getting real jobs where they were financially independent, they had some power, and all of a sudden they would look at their husbands, maybe on this side of the line, and go, nah. So it's almost like this movie is thinking about that stuff, right? Keep this in mind. Most of the movie is McLean shooting bad guys. And I'm not going to lie, it's awesome. I think it's great. I'm a big fan. But that's not what brings him here. And if that's true, then you have to own the fact, what is the real conflict of the movie? Why is he shooting all these bad guys? Well, to save his wife. Why is he trying to save his wife?
Because he loves her.
Sure. Why did he come here at all? Save his marriage. So this big problem, this line, he's got to figure that out. That's the real conflict of the movie. And I don't know if we have time to talk about it today. What time is it, by the way?
3:54.
Thank you, sir. But solving this problem, what side of the line he wants to be on, how he's going to make himself okay with that, that's the real conflict. And how it gets resolved by the end, maybe we'll try to talk about it next time because we got to do one other thing. But that's what it's really about. Cool. All right. We didn't talk about the partiers. I hate to be crass. What are they doing? Those two folks when they break into that room.
Also trying to find a place where they can be alone.
They are. Very well put. As a matter of fact, we break in on them later in the movie, about 30 seconds after this, right, when the bad guys get there. They were
They found their place to go.
They did for a minute. And I only point that out because, oh my, let that finish. Because it's kind of weird, right? Like, Gennaro is enough, the assistant is enough, but we have them too. I think they're doing something else. And again, especially because power could fail at any moment. I don't know that we have time to talk about them today, but I wanted to point out to you, if you were to maybe take this scene on and really look at all the different things, they're doing something else. They're a part of that world. They are a reminder. They do break into the conversation. That world interrupts the conversation. That's all true. But they're doing more than that. They're looking for a place to have sex. And some about that is interrupting their the conversation they're trying to have too. Which is interesting. But that's a big question. We don't have time to solve it today. Before we move on to anything else anybody notice in the scene? This is a really important scene in the movie. I don't know if I can underscore that enough. Very briefly, somebody describe to me how McClane is dressed.
Describe to you.
Yeah, what's he look like? What's he wearing?
Wearing a tank top.
Tank top?
And jeans, I guess.
Just some pants.
Yeah.
Couldn't even tell you. I don't know that they're jeans. I don't remember. They're so nondescript. He's wearing a tank top, and another place in time would have been known as a wife beater. Right? The sort of cultural connotations around that. What kind of guy does he look like?
Kind of a lower class worker type dude.
Blue collar. Everyman. But again, I put my marker down, but that goes on this side of the line, according to the movie. That kind of guy, that kind of world, that's over here. This is the movie is arguing, lower class way to view things. The lower classes maybe are more traditional. The upper classes, with all their money, all their opportunity, they can be more progressive, the movie would seem to suggest. At least when it comes to marriage. Okay. The next thing I want to do, this is actually very different. But, let me see. Okay, I'll just close this. Alright. I sent you guys a link to this. It is in your inboxes if you would please open that up. Of course, you can follow along on the screen, but there's too much to look at on the screen, so I think it would just help you to have it. What do you have in front of you? These are 2 paragraphs from the final draft of the, oh man, this is a really confusing way to put this. All right, let's start over. The rough draft we looked at, like 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, we were kind of starting to finish up our papers on Rocky, you know, and I brought in a rough draft for you guys to look at. We talked about it in class, that whole deal. You guys did a really good job. What we're looking at now is the final draft of that paper, okay? This is my way of telling you I have finished grading your papers. I know. There's no way for me to deliver that information without everyone in the room looking up and be like, oh. All right, we got through that. Now, you guys did all right. As a class, you did all right, okay? You can't find your grade right now, so don't try. I'm gonna release it at the end of class. You'll have it at the end of class, okay? But you have the opportunity to revise, okay? I wrote down the date because I'm bad with dates. Oh, if you decide to revise, you do not have to, it is optional. If you decide to revise, it would be due the 22nd. So, oh, I am bad with dates. Is that a week or 2 weeks?
I'm checking. That is a week.
Okay, so you have a week. Granted, in the grand scheme, that's not a ton of time, but also that's going to allow you a couple things if you decide to do it. Number one, the further out you get from the movie and us talking about it, just the further out you get from the thoughts you have about it, right? Like, I think the sooner you work on this, the better. Also, at least I believe, I decided on that date because it's going to not as much get in your way of this paper, which is due sometime after. I forget when. Again, I look at the syllabus too. I don't hold this stuff in my head. But the point is, if you decide to revise, it'll be due in a week. And the way I do revisions, if you do better on your paper, I replace your original grade with your new one. Okay? So, on average, people do about 5 points better, just across the board, average-wise. Every semester, I have somebody will do like 10 points better. Very occasionally, I've had people do 20 points better, stuff like that. So like you can legit vastly improve on your grade. Now again, the better you might have done on the original, it's harder to, like that's just how it goes. But I always recommend to everyone to give the revision a shot. But that's up to you. Even if you decide not to do that, even if you're sitting here right now and you're like, I'm not doing that. That's fine. I think that's a mistake, but that's fine. The work we're about to do, I do think will still help you for the second paper because it's all the same kind of stuff, okay? It's all analysis. It's all digging into specific elements and talking about why they're significant. So no matter what you decide after this class, this should help. All right, that's my preamble. It was a little disjointed. I apologize. We were all distracted by the rain, which really started coming down in the middle of my spiel there. So what are we looking at? As I said, this is the final draft. I don't want to say too much because, I mean, to be totally honest, this is one of your papers. And it's kind of weird for that person right now, right? Like, that's the nature of it. They did all right. I know they're panicking right now because we're looking at their papers. They did okay. It could be better, just like all of yours. And that's what we're going to talk about. What you have the introduction, and you have one body paragraph. Now, I will tell you, just because some of you might be confused otherwise, they start talking about Apollo a little bit at the end of the intro. They talk about Apollo in later paragraphs, okay? But that's not in this draft we're looking at. So if that strikes you as odd, they do address it. It's just not here, okay? What I want you to do with these two paragraphs, just take a couple minutes and read them. All I'm interested in, I want you looking for arguments. When and where do we make arguments? And if we have to have a conversation about what that is, we will, okay? But I want to see how you do first. There is a real distinction we got to draw today between observation and argument. So to the best of your ability, take a couple minutes, look through this. Anywhere you see argument occurring, make some kind of a note. We're going to talk about it. Take a couple minutes. talk about it. What'd you guys find? Any arguments? And we do have some. But I know where they are. I want to see how you guys do. Yeah.
The last sentence, there's talking about how Paulie isn't trying to find a job for himself, but like waiting for Rocky trying to get him into a place for a job.
Okay.
I thought that was kind of like a decent argument trying to say that Paulie is kind of mooching off Rocky a little bit.
That's an argument. The last sentence is not.
Yeah, but like that's where it kind of clicked in my head.
Sure.
I
Let's-
find
go
Polly
ahead.
to be the biggest example of waiting on your shot and not working at it.
Yeah, I was trying to. Oh, there it is. Yeah, this whole last section is really what you guys are talking about, right?
Yes, sir.
Paulie is waiting on his shot. He's not going to work at it. He wants Rocky to. I hate this term because it's loaded, but like give him a kind of a handout or something, right? Now we talked about this a little bit when we looked at the draft. And by the way, you may not remember that draft super clearly. That's not your job to remember it, okay? But part of the reason I pulled this is I wanted to show you guys this is way better than what we looked at in class that day. So you all have the magic within you. I know, I'm an idiot. But talk to me about this. Is, for instance, when you watch the movie, does it seem to you guys that Paulie is waiting on Rocky to give him a shot? He isn't really going to do it himself. Does seem pretty clear to you guys? Yes. Because he is. So what we have here, it is an argument, but it's damn near an observation too. Okay? Because it's pretty clear. What we can do though, and again, I think it's in the body paragraph, which is buried a little bit, is we can look for opportunities, how best to explain this? Oh, I hate this, feels like a scavenger hunt. Okay, somewhere in this body paragraph, they gesture toward a bigger question, okay? Because keep in mind, the question we are trying to answer in every class, in every paper, what does this text say about us as a people, a society, a culture? So if your argument stops with Paulie or with Rocky or anything like that, you haven't quite done your job. Why are we talking about Paulie? The fact that he does this, right? Why do we care? What does it tell us about us? How we think about things, how we do things, right? Do you see anything in this body paragraph that helps us start to talk about that? Anything that goes beyond Paulie and Rocky?
People in the Lucky Seven Tavern.
Where do you see that?
The tavern itself is a rundown looking driving bar, mostly filled with patrons on the lower end of the economic ladder.
Okay. So we understand that maybe, and I'm asking here, but maybe the way we're going to talk about Paulie, how he carries himself, how he approaches things, somehow applies to these other patrons. Like they're all similar in a way. Is that fair? Okay. So then what are we saying about Paulie? And then as a result, what are we trying to say about these other patrons? That's not quite, that's all the pieces are here, but it's not quite added up in the paragraph yet. So you got to do this yourself, but I think we can. What are we saying about Paulie? And then as a result, what does that say about everybody else in the bar? What's Paulie's big deal? It's highlighted still. He's waiting on his lucky break, right? So then the upshot is everyone in the bar is doing what? They're waiting on their lucky break. Now again, we haven't yet moved outside of the film, but we have moved beyond Paulie. We're talking about more people now. This is a little more applicable to us. Okay? But we gotta jump that gap from the movie to us. What are we talking about? If we're talking about the people in this bar, the kind of people in this bar. What kind of people are in this bar? Rocky's a part of that crew. Paulie's a part of that crew. What kind of people are there? Lower income, lower class, poor folks in Philadelphia. Okay? So we're saying something then here. And this is the point where we have a couple possibilities. This, by the way, is how you know you're making an argument that's worthwhile. But we're saying something about either the narrative around poor people or the way poor people are taught to think about themselves and their prospects, or even possibly the reality of poor people in the 70s. We cannot accomplish all three of those things in a body paragraph, by the way. That would be bananas. You pick one of those. But whichever one you try to answer, that becomes the focus of that body paragraph. Okay? I'm going to ask again. I'm sorry. What time is it?
It's 4:11.
Oh, God, we have so much time. You guys are going to hate me. Okay. So, what we're going to try to do, and God help me, it might take a half hour. We're going to try to bare bones a body paragraph. Okay? The first thing we got to figure out is our evidence. Every time you start a body paragraph, you want some evidence. Something to point at in the movie. It's going to ground your discussion. Okay? Now, we know what scene we're talking about. It's when Rocky gets to the bar, he walks through it, meets Paulie in the bathroom. They talk about his sister in a way that they probably shouldn't. They go back, Paulie leaves. Apollo is on the TV at the end. All that. That's that scene, right? But we said we want to focus on Paulie specifically, but if we can get it, the other people in the bar too, and the fact that they're all kind of waiting on their shot, their lucky break. What part of that scene do you think we can highlight to help us just think about that some? I wasn't thinking. I didn't bring the movie in, so we have to use our memory now. How could you just baseline? How could you start to argue that Paulie is looking for a lucky break from Rocky? This was pretty easy.
By the way that Rocky just kind of takes care of him.
Okay. Like what?
Like when he gets him the beer,
Yeah.
pours the glass full,
Also-
he's kind of leaves there.
Okay.
Just assumes that's for him.
Yeah?
When Paulie leaves the bar, and Rocky's like, I've got it.
Oh, and he pays for his beer too when he leaves? Sure. Okay. Because look, you help your friends out, you know. But those are kind of weird. Like, I'm sure I've paid for friends before, but like,
He kind of expects it.
it's assumed. Yeah. In the bathroom. All right, hold on. We're getting ahead of ourselves. All right. So, both of those are good. We would have to figure out how to describe them because most of that isn't dialogue, right? Something to the effect of when Rocky, scroll some so you see that better. When Rocky first enters the bathroom, he immediately pours Paulie a drink. Does Rocky? I think Rocky does say something to him, doesn't he?
What about the drink?
Does he say this is yours or something?
He's kind of like, here, this is for you.
No, he doesn't.
He may not. Yeah, I can't.
I thought it was,
I can't remember.
Because like he leaves it right there, and then Paulie's just like, oh, he grabs it.
In either case, I mean, this is the part where you would double check, right? You would go look at the scene again. But they don't say very much, if anything at all. All right. So neither one. And then our later evidence, if we decided to use it, Something like that. Okay. All right. So that's our evidence. And again, most of that isn't super important, right? We've already kind of hit upon the important part. What's the super important part of this evidence? Something about how Polly approaches it. You guys just said it.
Like it's kind of implied that Rocky's gonna take her.
He assumes. He takes for granted the fact that Rocky's going to do this, right? Okay. That's what we got to focus on then. Now let's push on that a little bit. What does it mean? And we can still stick to their relationship. We don't have to get real big yet. But what does it mean that Polly takes this for granted? Rocky walks in, pours the beer, says, maybe he says something, maybe he doesn't, but he just sets it there. Polly's like, awesome. He takes it for granted. We're starting to argue that Rocky is doing that for him. What does that tell us about Polly? A little entitled?
Kind of just like she's on.
He's a mooch. Yeah. What'd you have, Samara?
Selfish.
Selfish. What do you mean by that?
Like he only thinks about himself probably.
That's
Is that a
interesting.
stretch, though?
What'd you say?
I said, is that like a stretch?
No, I mean not necessarily. I mean, well, I'm thinking about him through the rest of the movie. He definitely sucks. And I mean, some of that could be some selfishness. I'm trying to chew on that. Okay. We can attempt, but again, we're drafting in real time, right? By the end of all this, you would kind of hopefully take a step back, look at what you've written and say, this works better than this, or I actually like the selfish thing, right? We're just kind of figuring it out. I promise you guys this would be fun, by the way. Some of you are barely hanging on. Let me see. He takes this action for granted. Polly feels entitled to what, though? Don't say beer. We know that. We're beginning to argue that the beer is a metaphor, right? We know he feels entitled to beer.
To everything that Rocky can offer, because also if you look at the scene, this kind of get a little bit ahead, but the scene when they're in the meat locker and they're doing the interview,
Yeah.
how Polly keeps trying to get in the shot.
He photobombs it and tries to. Yeah. Yeah.
There's another scene further in the movie where Rocky has that robe that's got like shamrock meats on the back.
Yeah.
It's like,
And he's kind. Yeah. He
It's almost
definitely.
like he's trying to get in the spotlight.
He's
from
trying
Rocky.
to
In Rocky's spotlight.
on Rocky's fame.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He's trying to take advantage of it, try to use it for himself, right? Okay. And yeah, and again, I like because all that's really good. We do have to be careful. I don't know that we can include that in this paragraph,
Yeah.
but that does tell us two things. One, we absolutely have some traction here, and two, if this were a longer paper, those are our next body paragraphs potentially, right? But anyway, he feels entitled to. I'm trying to get it just how you said it, like.
Everything that Rocky is, every opportunity that Rocky has.
Can offer.
Jesus, I can't type. Okay. All right. So what we've done at this stage, we took our evidence, we focused on a particular element of that evidence. And I want to underscore that for you guys, okay? This evidence all on its own is very specific. It's a very specific moment in the scene. It's like 5 seconds of the scene, okay? And we said, no, that's not specific enough. This one element, the fact that Paulie just, with basically nothing said, is like, thanks, man. Is interesting. Does kind of feel like he's taking it for granted. Feels like he's a little bit maybe entitled to what Rocky has to give, whatever it might be. Now, we got to think about ways to move beyond that, okay? Because we got to get outside of the movie. How does this apply to us? What does it have to say about us? I don't know that this would help us do it, the second bit of evidence, because to me, that would just be more of, see, he does it again. We've already made that point. But again, this is how drafting works. What we got to think about now is, how do we get from Paulie to us? There was an in-between there we had in the earlier paragraph. I'll scroll up if you want. Oh my God, I can't believe that. Sorry, I can't let that stand. Jesus. All right. We don't just talk about Paulie in this paragraph. What else do we talk about? Don't say Rocky. Who?
Other people in the bar?
Yeah. What about them? We make a point about them.
We're all there for the same reason.
And they're kind of down the line as well.
Yeah. So they're all kind of united under this banner that is the Lucky Seven Tavern. And we're trying to say that the movie implies that the BS behavior that Paulie is engaged in here can be applied to those folks too. Okay? So, now the trick would be, how do we talk about those people in the same way we talk about Paulie? How do we argue that the movie says these people, look, Paulie's one of these people, basically. His mindset probably isn't too dissimilar from their mindset.
Isn't this the first time we're introduced to Paulie though?
Yes. 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 Why?
Paulie hangs out here all the time.
How could you argue? How do you know he hangs out here all the time? I think you could argue that.
Maybe Rocky knew where to go to look.
That's true. That's number one. I would like something a little stronger than that, because they could have arranged to meet there, but I like that. I like that. How else? I'll lead you there a little bit. What time is it, by the way?
4:24.
Thanks, guys. I told you this would be fun. What's Paulie doing when Rocky finds him?
He's fixing his hair with a broken mirror.
In the broken lack of a mirror. He's combing his hair in this awful bathroom, sketchy bathroom. He's kind of making himself at home, right? You could argue. He's engaging in some, I just lost the word. Maintenance, I guess. But he's treating it, you could argue, like he lives there, kind of. He's just kind of milling about in the bathroom, fixing his hair. Like you don't do that in the public. At least I don't. Maybe some people do. All right. So basically what we're saying is, what we're starting to get at, moreover, Paulie Okay. So now we've said that Paulie more or less makes himself at home in this bar. Just the way he carries himself, some of the things he does. By the way, if we felt like we needed to say more about that, we could. But again, this is drafting. What does this imply? Again, we're trying to cross that bridge from Paulie to the other folks in the bar because we need more ammunition. What is the fact that what does it mean to make yourself at home somewhere? What does it say about that place and you? You're super comfortable. You're not just there all the time, but you're comfortable, right? Sometimes in your life you'll go to a place you've never been before and you're comfortable. Usually it's because it's got your kind of people in it, or like, I hate to put it this way, but like the vibe of the place, somehow, you know, like fits you somehow, like you just feel comfortable. Chances are very good, by the way, if that is the case, it's probably similar socioeconomic background, or if faith is a thing that's important to you. Like anything that you define yourself as, if you end up in a place with people like that, chances are very good you're going to be pretty comfortable pretty quickly. That's what we're saying about Paul. This is his place because this is his people. Okay. This implies that the bar and everyone in it called the Lucky Number 7 Tavern, I believe. What are we saying about those people? Now we're saying Paulie and everyone in there, because they're just like Paulie, or at least they're pretty close to Paulie.
They all have the same mindset as well.
Which is what? We're just trying to put it into different words. We're saying all those people are waiting on something or looking for something. What are they looking for? What are they waiting on?
Waiting on their lucky break.
Their lucky break. But we can get a little stronger than that, okay? Everyone inside this tavern,
Waiting on an opportunity.
good God. Because it's not centered. I know you guys don't care, but it's really bugging me. It's like off to the left. I don't know. Anyway, it's waiting for their lucky break. But we got to be stronger than that. Because again, that's an argument, but it's not much of one. What did we say about Paulie? We did not say he was looking for a lucky break from Rocky. What did we say?
He's mooching off Rocky.
He feels entitled to it. He takes it for granted, this idea that Rocky's going to give him something, right?
Maybe waiting for an opportunity to be handed to them.
But again, it's what we're arguing, and I'm gonna write with you. All right. So more than that, though. This is the tricky part. This takes us all the way back to our original metaphor. We said, and I think pretty successfully, that Paulie assumes, Paulie takes for granted Rocky's going to give him that beer. Just like he assumes Rocky's going to help him get this job at some point. Right? So we're saying now that these folks, let me get the words right, are waiting around for an opportunity to be handed to them. Why? We got to talk about him like we're talking about Paulie. Yeah. Maybe. I'm not sure how strong to be on this last part, right? I feel like ode might be a little strong, but they feel like it's coming. Like when we say it's taken for granted, you assume it's a done deal, right? One way to talk about that with some stank on it is to say that you feel like it's owed to you, right? And maybe. But at the very least, huh?
They probably deserve it.
That's the same stank train he's on. Fuck it, we'll do it. Yeah. I wanted to be nicer, but that's okay. Because, how'd you put it? I'm so sorry. It's because they feel we got one or two more sentences and then we're done. There could be more, but for our sakes, we'll be done after that, okay? We still haven't moved outside the movie, but we're very close. We went from Paulie to a group of people like Paulie. Now we got to jump that gap. From this group of folks to the wide, wide world. Or at least America, right? It's an American movie. Why? This is the part that comes from you, by the way. Everything up till now has still come from you guys, but it's been grounded in the movie, okay? Now we're going to say, given all the points we just made about the movie, we're going to theorize an argument about the world that Rocky came from. The movie, not the character, okay? Why do you think, why could you argue now that these dirt poor people in Philadelphia feel like a lucky break, an opportunity is owed to them? And I'm going to use that language because it's in our paragraph. They assume, like Paulie does, that beer of opportunity is just coming. I just got to wait on it, and it'll be here. Why do you think that is in this movie? Every movie is different. Every text is different. We talk about a couple things. I know it's been a while. We talk about a couple things in the movie, not in this scene, but in the movie, that seem like they might have something to do with this. Who else talks about opportunity in the film?
Apollo Creed.
Apollo Creed does. Do you guys remember when?
Yeah.
You want to share it with us?
I'm trying to think about it. I do remember him saying.
Oh, does anybody remember Apollo Creed? He talks about opportunities
He was talking to
Oh, in the meeting.
with the promoter
Yeah.
when they're deciding on what.
He was gonna fight him.
They lose the original fighter. They're looking for other guys, and he says, "No, it'll be a local guy. I'm gonna give a local fighter an opportunity." He uses that word. This is Rocky's lucky break. We said as much, and it is. This is his shot. This is his opportunity. It came to him. How does Apollo spin that? How do they sell the fight?
He said it was, we used the word novelty.
Yeah, but they don't put that on posters. They sell it a different way. Do you remember? It's all wrapped up in not a holiday, because a holiday is every year, but like a certain celebration that's going on. The bicentennial. What's all this business about opportunity? What are we talking about? The American fucking dream. You can come here. What do you get if you come here and you work hard enough for long enough? Opportunity. You can take it for granted. It's owed to you. Why am I talking like a maniac? I don't know. I'm sorry. Aren't we saying these people just bought into the American dream? They just thought, man, my life sucks right now, but if I just make it through all 15 rounds of my shitty life, I'll get something on the other side. I think you could argue that for sure. That's how we get outside the movie. This movie. Every movie is different. Okay? But with all the other pieces, you probably introduced some of those in your introduction. Okay? That are in this movie, they are very interested in the American dream. That's why Rocky's a hero. He proves that it works. But one of my favorite parts of the movie is they cut back and forth between him and the bar. He's living his American dream when he's fighting Apollo Creed. See everyone else at the bar, they're still at the bar. They get to live vicariously in him. He's their American dream. But they don't get it for themselves. So the movie's got something to say about that. Some people get it. But I don't know that it works quite the way that we think it does, right? That's the rest of our argument. Something to the effect of, that's what we're getting at. Okay? Now, for the last little bit of class. And look, we had nowhere else to go. It was raining like crazy behind you guys. I don't know how often you looked at it. I kept looking, it was wild. But it's mostly calmed down now, I think. What you would do, okay, when you revise and crush your paper, okay? You got to go through and you got to, the best of your ability, be honest with yourself. Where are my arguments? You're going to have a lot of observation. That doesn't help you so much. Where am I making an argument about a character or about something in the film? Okay, isolate that. Now, what's some evidence I can point to talk about that more? Something specific from your scene. Now, what's something even more specific about that evidence I can focus on? What does it allow me to talk about? In this case, it allowed us to talk about the fact that Paulie's a mooch. That's not much of an argument. Can you do anything else with it? Well, he seems to stand in for a lot of these other people in the bar, right? He seems to be from the same place, from the same time. They're all kind of the same kind of people. Okay, well, what are they doing in this bar? And from there, we're rolling, right? And we talked our way through it, and then I pushed you guys a couple times, but we ended up at, what does any of this have to say about us? Well, poor folks, I happen to know because I grew up that way, really like to believe in the American dream. One argument the movie makes, and it makes a lot, one of them might be because they believe in the American dream so much because it's their only way, it's their only opportunity, right? So that's what we ended up talking about. The trick would be, after all that, you want to revise still. This is a draft, it's not perfect, okay, but it's pretty solid. You want to try to sum up this argument in a topic sentence, okay? Something to the effect of, you know, because Paulie takes Rocky's charity for granted, and because he stands for the lower classes throughout the movie, you know, God, I'm butchering this, but this helps us. This implies that the American dream in the film is a myth largely adhered to by the lower classes as like a last hope, something like that. That was awful, and I apologize. But that's the best way I know to do it, right? That's what you're trying to do. Just do a couple paragraphs like that. Questions about anything we did today? Okay. Couple reminders. Number one, for the paper we're currently working on right now. You have some articles to look at for next time. Those are on Course 10. You have a discussion post for next time. That's also on Course 10. If you decide to revise, again, I recommend everyone does. Bear in mind, that'll be due the 22nd. I'll remind you guys next time. We'll talk about it just a little bit next time, not like we did today. What else I want to tell you? Oh, keep in mind, the only sales pitch I have is I will replace your grade. So whatever you ended up with, which I'm going to release at the end of class, you can replace that. If you're not happy with it, if you're kind of happy with it, but you'd like it to be better, I will replace it. I don't average. I'll replace it. It's pretty awesome. But this is what I want you to try to do to the best of your ability. And if you don't revise, that's a bummer. This is still what we're trying to do with Die Hard as well. Okay? Last thing, I'll let you go. This is a document that's shared with all of you, so you still have this in your inbox. You just click on that link. You can see this anytime. If you want a kind of reminder of where we ended up at. All right. I'll see you guys Wednesday. Thank you.